The Orange and Blue game only a few days away. We've got Gators Breakdown podcast host Dave Waters here. Dave, it's been an interesting start to Billy Napier's second year as we kind of get ready for the spring game. The big question that everybody wants to know is what's going on at quarterback. They brought in Graham Mertz to kind of battle for the job as the transfer. So far, no starting quarterback officially named. What do you think about the guys that are fighting for the job?
Yeah, Graham Mertz, Jack Miller, Max Brown. There's your three-man quarterback battle right now for the Gators, and it does sound like nobody's really separated themselves. Now, if you go to spring practice, media only gets about 10, 15 minutes, but asking around behind the scenes, it does seem that way. Nobody's really separated themselves, and maybe a surprise you bring in Graham Mertz, who started 3 years at Wisconsin, that he hasn't taken the job yet, but still a new offense for him while the other two guys have had experience in this offense. So it may take some time. But, spring game, I don't know how far to go into the determination of the starting quarterback for Billy Napier, but, hey, there's an advantage either way. If you don't name the starter, maybe they just don't name it publicly. Right. In Utah's game one, do you let them know who the starter is before that game? Or if you do name a starter, that guy gets those starting reps all through fall camp. So we'll see just how far it goes, but through spring right now, I don't think there is a clear-cut starter.
And Mertz was far from a sure thing as he rolls into Gainesville. I mean, it was an up-and-down early career for him collegiately. Yep. So do you start to worry almost that he hasn't been able to separate himself, even though he does have so much in-game experience already under his belt?
Yeah, I think it can be taken that way. I don't think that's too far out of left field if that's the way you think. Like you said, he does bring a lot of experience. Now, there's been the big question for Graham Mertz. Did he hold the Wisconsin offense back, or did the Wisconsin offense hold him back? Right. So I think we'll get our answer. I mean, he's in a different system, different offense, probably got some better playmakers around him. If you can't get it done at Florida, maybe he just wasn't that good to begin with.
Good questions there. All right, so this is going to be Billy Napier's second year, and he's going to be dealing with another quarterback, so he kind of has to reinstall that offense almost from scratch at the quarterback position a little bit. What are your expectations as Napier goes into that second year at Florida? I know that first season there were some highs and probably a few lows that you'd like to avoid a few of those lows from last season.
Absolutely. I mean, started off with a bang with the win versus Utah. Very next week, Anthony Richardson couldn't throw the ball as a quarterback. So, yeah, up and down season. But as you said, new quarterback, whoever it is, they're going to be carried by this Florida run game, a deep, deep running back room. Bring back an experienced in some places, Jacksonville natives on the offensive line with Austin Barber, Kingsley Aguakin, Roderick Kearney from Orange Park getting some snaps in at the center position. So, I mean, running game, deep offensive line. I do think the quarterback's going to have it a bit easier. I don't think they're going to put too much on his shoulders just because of Billy Napier's history and his offense dating back to Louisiana and what he did last year. But expectations, you're going to have an offense carried by the run game. Defense going to have to take a step up to help that offense.
You mentioned a few of the kind of local guys that are on this Gators roster. Billy Napier's done a good job of recruiting the Jacksonville area since he's taken over, kind of re-energizing that pipeline. Can we expect to see a few of those guys making some plays for the Gators on Saturdays this year?
I think so, especially when the spring game Thursday. Absolutely. And this is the time to get your young guys a lot of reps. And there's a lot of young Jacksonville area prospects that the Gators have. So Jack Pyburn from Bowles, a Marcus Burke who's yet to break out at receiver. I think he's got all the chance in the world now through spring, and maybe we'll see him Thursday night. But true freshmen, as I mentioned, Roderick Kearney, Sharif Denson, Trayon Webb, I think we'll see those guys plenty Thursday night in the spring game. So Billy Napier has made an emphasis, and we'll see those names a good bit as he keeps recruiting Jacksonville better and better.
Well, if you had to pick one thing, what's the one thing you want to see from this Gators team in the orange and blue game on Thursday night?
The defense. It's still, I mean, this defense has been nowhere near a Gators standard since 2020. Sure. You've always been able to count on a good defense before that for Florida. It's the defense. So Austin Armstrong comes in as a new defensive coordinator. System isn't changing, maybe a little bit of terminology change, but thought to be a little bit more aggressive. And it does seem this defense has been a bit passive the last 3 years, even with the coordinator change last year. Sure. Defense, that's what I'm really looking for, is seeing those guys fly around a bit more.
Do they have the pieces that they need on that defense?
I think so. They're deeper up front. Even after losing Jervon Dexter, it may sound kind of silly that they may be deeper, but they brought in a really good transfer class. They're brought in transfers along the linebackers as well. Jason Marshall returns as a #1 cornerback. So I do think there's a lot of potential for this defense. I do think they are deeper.
That orange and blue game set for Thursday